Yesterday, the U.S. launched an airstrike in Syria that we now find out killed not members of ISIS as was intended, but a massive number of civilians, at least 73 at current count. And the initial reports say that the majority of those 73 were women and children. It was a group of families that were trying to flee fighting in that area. This was around Manbij. It's one of the areas that has been most fought over recently. It's relatively close to the border with Turkey. It's considered on an important supply line to Raqqa, and so the fighting has been fierce around it. A number of civilians not able to leave that area. These families had made it to be able to try to flee, and unfortunately, it was believed that they were members of ISIS, so they were targeted by this airstrike, and many were killed. Now, this is one airstrike. There have been a number of others that have killed civilians in recent weeks. There have been humanitarian groups reporting on that, but to see in one attack 73 civilians dying. And this, look, the context is that we're at the Republican National Convention, and we were hearing less than 24 hours ago that we are too restrictive in our use of force. We need to loosen up the military, stop worrying about civilian casualties. 73 people dying, and my prediction, I could be proven wrong, I don't think we're going to see 15 Benghazis worth of congressional investigations into how this could happen and how many people could die needlessly.
So, look, anytime you have a bombing like this of civilians, it is going to be heart-wrenching if you are a decent human being. So reporting out that children are obviously part of the 73, and 8 families that were fleeing the scene were accidentally bombed, and one of the kids was 3 years old, according to witnesses, and they saw, dead body there. And you get investigate into what might be more than 73 people. You investigate into all the people who were killed. And if we did, as we do here in America, after shootings for understandable reasons or after bombings, we show you all the victims and their families, it would be heartbreaking. Now, part of it is that we don't have the resources. I don't mean Young Turks. I mean all the media to get into the middle of the fighting there and tell those stories. And part of it is, it's Syria. So, it's not America, but look,
also,
I'm going to say something. I don't know how people are going to take it, but if we had 73 dead in Paris, we had 73 dead in Los Angeles, it would be a giant, giant story. And now it's a big enough story. We're leading the show with it.
Yeah,
but
mostly international news, but it's on CNN and stuff like
now,
that.
I'm not unaware of what everybody out there is going to say, which is, but it was an accident. We didn't mean to kill them. There's a big difference. But if we drop over 10,000 bombs on Syria, as we have, you're going to have many accidents, and a lot of civilians are going to die. So we got to figure that out. Are we comfortable with that? Are we like, well, yeah, okay, 73 will die in one case, and 12 in another, and 28 in another, and that's what we're doing. Yeah, we're bombing the hell out of them, and I don't care. Or I do care, but I'm willing to pay the price. Or I care a lot, and that's not a price I'm willing to pay because I don't want to have the same monstrous consequences as when other bombings happen.
I don't know. I don't care. I don't care what my opinion is, and nobody else should care what my opinion is. Like, it's such a serious thing. But I think you're leaving out one scenario that is obviously a calculation of the administration, which was, I do care, and I know that our campaign has saved many more people than it has killed, because obviously those people in Syria are in danger anyway, and we are saving people, although this is a terrible mistake and we will do everything possible to avoid making it. But yes, you're right. Obviously, if you drop 10,000 bombs, it might happen. But we think we've net saved lives.
So, first off,
I don't know that that's true. I know that's...
It's loud in here, but I put in one of the scenario because I do care, and I think overall it's worth it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Worth it meaning, presumably I'm saving more lives.
Okay.
That's where it gets really murky, because and whose lives are we saving and how are we saving them? I mean,
those are more difficult to count than the ones that we don't save or the ones that we cost. Those are hard numbers. The others, the ones we're saving, are difficult to quantify, and that's one of the ugly sides of this too. And one of the many ugly sides is that there's no real way to count how many you're saving. There's no way to say how safe you're keeping people.
And it smacks a little bit of, and it's, and I'm not questioning anybody's intentions, meaning the government's, we had to destroy the village in order to save it. Because 10,000 bombs can destroy a lot of villages.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, yes, but it's supposed to eventually make Syria freer, but certainly keep us safer. But yet there's terrorist bombings and attacks all across the world, so that mission doesn't seem to be accomplished.
And look, as I was saying, there are people that are in that city that want to get out that are being held as human like shields and things like that. Like there are reasons to do this potentially. You can make the argument that to save a country, people will always die in those sorts of things. We're not disputing that. Around this city, there have been 450 airstrikes as of yesterday, at the very least. Which, first of all, when we hear that the reason we're not beating ISIS is because Obama won't fight them, or that he's actively seeking to help Islamic terrorists, when you actually look at any of the numbers, read one goddamn article, it seems so absurd on its face. But that also, whether you make a philosophical argument that in the long run, civilian deaths lead to better things or are a necessary ingredient of better things, and that civilian deaths are lower than they were in past conflicts. We're not carpet bombing entire cities and things like that, is 100% true. But one of the reasons I think that we need to focus on it is that we rightfully focus on the deaths of civilians in our country and in Europe. We have to be fair. When civilians die, they deserve to be acknowledged. And also, as I said in the beginning, in the context of we're at a convention where people are saying that we should be carpet bombing cities and that the military is being handicapped. They should not have to worry about whether civilians die. And we need to fight against that. That used to be how we function in war. It shouldn't be how we go back to functioning.
It's understandable on one point because obviously when Americans die, we're Americans. We have an identification with Americans, just as Syrians have an identification with Syrians. You know, I can guarantee you Syrians are more concerned about this than they were about Orlando. Like, it evens out if that's all you care about. But if we're dismissive about the deaths of Syrians in general as a society, we're not going to beat no one, even Donald Trump. He wants to, make Saudi Arabia pay its way if we're going to defend them, wants NATO, all the NATO countries to pay their way. If ISIS is going to be defeated in Syria, most of the fighting is going to get done by Syrians. So killing 73 innocent Syrians, regardless of religion, sect, tribe, obviously is important and runs the risk all by itself, and certainly if you exponentially keep doing it, runs the risk of undermining the very mission that you're trying to accomplish.
So that goes to John's point of, okay, take the gloves off, let the army go. And there's been a number of speeches here where they literally said, oh, we're reining them in. We should unleash our military. You unleash it, and they kill 173 or 730 people in that town. We're trying to save that town. That is our mission. Right. So if we are killing more of them than ISIS is, how are we, A, saving them, and how do we, B, expect them to be on our side and fight against ISIS?
And that's
Ben's point.
That's the mindset of the Vietnam War. I mean, it's and John was talking about turning the clock back. This candidacy, this convention is let's make America great again, which seems to imply it was, when we were doing things that way, it was much better than it is when we're doing things this way. It's imperfect now. It was worse and less perfect then.
And of course, I can hear as you make that point, John McCain and others who see Vietnam and think, oh, we would have won, but we were held back. The military was held back. I don't think that's true, but I'm not going to argue with guys like John McCain about what we did or didn't do in Vietnam. But here's one country that I'm pretty sure unleashed total war and wasn't worried about civilian casualties. The Soviet Union and Afghanistan.
Yes.
They weren't, I don't think the Politburo was like, oh, we got to be careful, there's a village there. Now, they're not monstrous. I don't want to turn them into monsters either. But that was not a big concern of theirs, right? Overall, I'm sure military commanders there did not want to innocently kill civilians. But it didn't work. Like sometimes that idea of total war turned basically the entire country against the Soviet Union.
So, and by the way, let's say that we had decided we were going to quote unquote win in Vietnam. Well, we could have dropped 100 nukes, right? We could have obliterated North Vietnam, killed, I don't know, 10, however many.
80% of the population.
Yeah. And then what? And yes, the remaining 20% would have surrendered to us. And then what would we have won? Like what, we get to put a plaque up hey,
Right.
America won another war. Do you think that we got the Vietnamese on our side? There wouldn't be much Vietnamese left to be on our side.
Exactly.
So what are we
right.
trying to win here? And that's what we're mainly talking about here in the context of this story. Thoughtlessness. We have to be smart about foreign policy. Donald Trump says that, oh, well, I'm going to, unleash the military. He also says, I'm not going to meddle in their affairs. So which one is it? I asked a Trump supporter in an interview earlier today. So does that mean he would bomb ISIS more or less? They didn't have an answer. They said, oh, he has a secret plan. But that's not
Yeah.
how you run for office.
Because that guy
But it
likes
might
to
be really good though.
that guy likes to play things close to the vest.